This is the LG G7 ThinQ. So the LG G7 came out in 2018. This is LG's flagship phone for 2018, along with the LG V40. So I'll just zoom in on the phone right here. And in this video, I'm just going to give a very quick overview of the LG G7 and whether this phone is still worth buying in 2020. So to get started, let's just go over a little bit of the background. This phone came out in 2018. Its official full name is the LG G7 ThinQ, which LG decided to go with the ThinQ name because it was to advertise how their cameras, as well as just more LG products in general, are AI focused. Now I think it's a dumb name, so for the rest of the video I'm just going to refer to this phone as the LG G7. So right now I do have it in a case. I have it in a Speak & Rugged Armor case, and I'm going to keep it in the case most of the time because this phone is a fingerprint magnet, and you'll see why in a sec. But anyway, let's just go over the physicals of this phone. It has a 5.8 inch 1440p IPS LCD display. So like a lot of LG phones of the past, this does not have an OLED screen. This has a LCD, which has its advantages and disadvantages. You know, so you're not going to have screen burn-in with an LCD like you can have with an OLED. I do believe LCDs can get a little bit brighter too than OLEDs, but obviously, you know, your colors are not going to look as good. You're not going to have colors that are saturated or as vibrant. And of course, LCD panels are not as power efficient as OLED screens are. But going over the phone, that's not a crack at the bottom. This actually has a screen protector on it, and the screen protector is cracked. But at the top of the phone, as you can see, you do have a little notch. It is a pretty small notch, but especially for a 2018 phone, this is definitely on the smaller side. And here you got your front-facing camera as well as your small earpiece. At the bottom of the phone, you have your USB-C port, your downward-firing speaker, as well as your headphone jack. Now, this phone does not have stereo speakers. The earpiece does not act as a speaker, so that is definitely a slight downside that this phone only has just one downward-firing speaker, but it is pretty good. This does have LG's boombox speaker, so the whole phone will literally vibrate if you have a song on and you turn up to a higher volume. And it does work pretty well. This is a pretty loud speaker. I just wish it were a stereo firing speaker. Now on the back of the phone, you can see you have your fingerprint sensor. You have your dual cameras. So this has a standard camera and then also an ultra wide camera. And right there is your flash. So pretty decent array there. And on the top, you have your microphone. So just real quick, I'm going to take off the case of the phone. And this is a phone you definitely want to keep a case on because, as you can see, this phone is a glass sandwich, so it does look very pretty. As you can see, it had this sort of mirror black finish, but trust me, this gets fingerprinty really easily. This type of finish, I know this is like the in thing now, but I kind of wish phones would start to move away from this because, I mean, really, with a phone like this, you want to keep it in a case. Because this can get scratched. This can, if you drop it, this glass will break. It's very nice looking, but you know, maybe more of a matte black finish would be nicer than just mirror black finish that can get ruined instantly as soon as you've just, you know, if I were to put my finger on here, it would kind of ruin the appearance of this. So yeah, if you do get the LG G7, you know, put it in a case. It's common sense. Just throw it in a case. Now, one advantage of the glass back, though, is that this phone does have wireless charging, and it does work pretty well. I do have a wireless charger. I've tried it out on that, and it does work pretty well. And wireless charging can work through this speaking case as well. Now I did get this phone used on eBay, so there's nothing else I could show you. I can't show you the box. I can show you the charger, though. And this phone does come with this LG fast charger. It's a pretty basic charger, but I like it's nice, it's compact. As you can see, it's a compact size. Now this isn't a particularly long cable. As you can see, it's a pretty small cable. I'd say it only stretches about maybe 2 feet or so. And this little LG electronics tag is pretty annoying, but the charger does get the job done. And I would say that this phone does charge. I can't say how quickly this charges, but it does charge quite fast with the fast charger. And again, you can also charge the phone wirelessly. Now, I don't have any other Now, this is pretty much how the phone came to me, so I don't have anything else. I can't show you the box or anything because it didn't come with a box. So I think this wraps up the exterior portion of the phone. Okay, so the phone is turned on now. And as you can see, this is what your lock screen looks like. You have quick access to your phone as well as your camera. And you can see up here, let me turn this on again. You can see that the notch really isn't that bad. And otherwise, apart from the notch, the bezels on this phone are pretty thin, maybe a little big by 2020 standards, but certainly, you know, not bad. Like, this is not something that I would complain about. Now, this phone does have a fingerprint sensor, so let's check that out. And as you can see, that was pretty quick. And as you can see, it is almost instantaneous. Maybe not the fastest, but that's more so because of the animation, more so than the speed. But it is pretty quick. This phone also does have face unlock, which it does work pretty well, although it is definitely on the slower side. So I'm going to try that real quick off camera. And honestly, a tiny bit slower. Let me see if I could get this on camera. Yeah, so there you go. So it is maybe a tiny bit slower than the fingerprint sensor, but still really close. So, you know, you got your face unlock, you got your fingerprint sensor, both of those do work pretty well. Now, as far as the UI goes, this is essentially LG's launcher, as you can see. There is no app drawer. You can have it with an app drawer, but by default, you get the phone. It does not come with an app drawer, though you can change that in settings. So just real quick to go over what the phone has, I'm going to open up the CPU-Z app. And as you can see, this does have the Snapdragon 845 processor running at 2.8 gigahertz. It is an octa-core processor. This basically is what every flagship phone from 2018 had. This phone does have 4 gigabytes of RAM, as you can see, 4 gigs of RAM. And right now I have the screen set at 1080p because, quite honestly, you don't need this screen at 1440. At 1080p, this display is pretty clear. It's pretty vibrant for an LCD. You know, it's not going to be as good as an OLED, but you know, this is still a very nice, very crisp, detailed display. And honestly, having it at 1440p is overkill. So if you were to get this phone, just leave it at 1080p. That's really all you need. And this phone also does come with Android 9. According to LG, there are rumors that this phone will get Android 10. I don't think it's confirmed, but I do believe, looking at it, that this phone will get Android 10 at some point. But for right now, it is stuck on Android 9. And as you can see, this is your battery here. This phone does have a 3000 milliamp hour battery. So in terms of the battery life, that's definitely a downside. At 3000 milliamp hours, it's a little small for this phone. And if I go into the AccuBattery app and go into history, the phone is not that great when it comes to battery life. So you can see here, on this day, I went from 95% to 3%, and the screen on time it managed was only 5 hours and 23 minutes. And then right here, from 99% to 22%, screen on time only ended up being 4 hours and 57 minutes. And then this was probably the best I've gotten battery life wise, 6 hours and 48 minutes from 99% down to 8%. But this one from 99 to 9%, so that's negative 90%. The screen on time on this phone was only 5 hours and 7 minutes. And so, in my opinion, this is the biggest downside of this phone. With this phone, again, at 1080p, you know, with a slight mix of, I would say, gaming, like just some slight gaming, but mostly just casual use, you will kill this phone roughly after 5 hours of screen on time, which in my opinion is definitely a downside of the phone. Because while a few years ago, that would have been fine for battery life, especially now, this is, for a flagship phone, this is pretty unacceptable. For comparison, my LG V40 has a slightly larger 3300 milliamp hour battery, and with that phone, I can manage at least an extra half hour to an hour of screen on time. So I can get that phone to a full 6 hours of screen on time, which I think for the average person, 6 hours of screen on time is essentially enough battery to power you through the whole day. But with this phone, if you use it for light use, you'll get through the day. But for anything more, for light use, if you start doing a little bit of gaming, taking a lot of videos or pictures, you will kill this phone before the end of the day. So definitely that's the downside of this phone. The battery life on this phone is simply not good. And I don't know why LG did not put in a bigger battery like its competitors have. But anyway, if you go into the camera app, as you can see, you do see AI cam, which I really don't use. But the camera on this phone is really good. It's a little hard to tell through the camera, but this is a good camera. And this is your standard camera right here. That's your standard camera. There we go, now it looks a little better. So you have a standard camera, and then you can swap from there to your ultra wide. And you can see in the ultra wide, you can see my pillow over there. Whereas in the standard camera, oops, took a picture by accident. If you go into your standard camera, you don't see the pillow there. So the camera system in this phone is pretty good. I believe it's 16 megapixels for the main camera. I'm not sure what the ultra wide is, but it is pretty good. And if you swap around, you can see, you could swap around, you could see the front facing camera. There are also a few settings here. So you can have it, now I do have cheese shuttered enabled. Yeah, and that's what it does. So when you say these words right here, it actually takes a picture automatically. So I'm going to turn that off. But yeah, when you say cheese, smile, whiskey, Kamichi, or LG, it will take a picture for you. As you can see, you can add a grid to the camera. It's not bad. And you can control your camera settings down here in terms of whether you want it, you know, 4x3, 16x9. And yeah, it is a 16 megapixel camera. At least the main camera is 16 megapixels. So it's a pretty simple camera, and you got, you know, like I said, your settings are there, your different modes. It's a pretty decent camera app. I would say that now to be fair, I somewhat prefer the standard Android camera app, but you know, the LG camera app isn't bad. And as far as this LG skin goes, it's not bad, although the LG skin really isn't all that much. Like, this really doesn't add a lot of functionality. And for me personally, I prefer stock Android, but the LG skin, it's fine. It's fine. It's, you know, that's really all there is to say. The LG skin is fine, but it really doesn't add really any extra functionality except the double tap feature. So you can double tap it to wake or go to sleep. I think that's pretty cool. But otherwise, the LG skin is more or less aesthetic. It doesn't really add extra functionality like Samsung skin. And I do prefer stock Android, but the LG skin is fine. It's inoffensive. It gets the job done. Now, continuing on the specs, this does have 64 gigabytes of internal storage, in which I believe around 15-ish gigs are used up out of the box. So you still have over 40 gigs of free storage when you get this phone. And mind you, this is a carrier lock. This is a Verizon variant, so I'm pretty sure if you were to get this phone unlocked, you'd probably have more storage available. And this does include extra features such as smart cleaning. And then over here, you get a bunch of LG specific apps, quick memo, downloads, you get your own gallery, calendar. That's the LG gallery right there. Of course, you got a quick thing for the settings. You know, in a way, it is bloatware, essentially. You know, essentially you do have Google apps that do the same thing as these LG specific apps, but you know, it's fine. And so I'll wrap up the video by just saying what I like and don't like about the LG G7. So the display is good. The size is good. This 5.8-inch display is good. The camera is good. In terms of what's not good, the skin, it's okay. The skin doesn't add anything, but it doesn't detract anything either. So the skin is just merely okay, but the battery life is what I would call bad. I mean, especially now, a 5-hour screen on time is just not good enough. So, you know, if you were to get this phone, just be mindful of who you are. If you're planning to buy it, if you're someone who plays a lot of games, takes videos and pictures often, I would steer away from this phone. But if you just need a phone for more basic use, I'd say the LG G7 is totally worth it.